So the tech world is kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, right? You have to get a golden ticket to get inside.
Sure.
It's super stupid.
Difficult. Yeah.
We complain that there's not enough tech talent out there, and yet we won't hire you as the receptionist if you haven't been the receptionist for a tech company. And then we bitch and moan that there's no tech talent out there, and people who aren't in our space aren't that techie, and yet we put up these moats to not let people in. If you're from outside of the tech world especially, the tech world is this like amazing thing where people become gajillionaires seemingly overnight. And so you see a movie about Facebook and you're like, dude, look at that. Zuckerberg was just sitting in his apartment on campus, decides to build this thing. Oh, cool. It's super great, blah, blah, blah. Raises money, gets funded, moves to Silicon Valley, all that kind of stuff. But what you didn't see was a movie on Friendster and MySpace that failed.
Right.
And even worse, you didn't see the movie on probably like 5,000 to 10,000 social media platforms that got nowhere. Because that little Zuckerberg story, that's like a 1 in 1,000 shot.
Welcome back to Killing Conversations, episode 7. Today I'm doing the introduction a little bit different today. I have our resident AI expert in the space, our Killing ambassador, Ryan Kohler. But what I did was I introduced Ryan Kohler through ChatGPT, and I'm going to just say what ChatGPT said about Ryan Kohler.
Nice.
All right, buckle up, everybody. Joining us today is Ryan Kohler, the founder and former CEO of ApplicantPro, a pioneer in modern hiring solutions. Ryan is not only a seasoned entrepreneur who scaled a SaaS company to serve over 10,000 clients, he's also an emerging voice in the fast-evolving world of AI and how it's transforming the workplace. How's that?
That's pretty solid, right?
Was it good?
Yeah.
I thought so too. I was like, I will say I had to kind of like wrangle in ChatGPT a little bit because first I put into the script or whatever, like write me an introduction for my podcast, Killing Conversations, on Ryan Kohler. And what it spit out was, this podcast is about a pottery company, and Ryan Kohler is a pottery expert, and he makes these really beautiful pottery pieces and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I see where it got that for sure, but that's not obviously what we're talking about. But yeah, thank you for being here, dude.
And it's actually a good, it's a great example of both like the pros and cons and the stakes and whatever, right?
For sure.
So if you think about that, you throw in like Kiln, which
right.
It doesn't know what Kiln you're talking about.
You would have to specify Kiln co-working.
Yeah, and so you're like, oh, Kiln co-working at kiln.com. Cool. Now it has something to go off of it. And you say Ryan Kohler, and there's like 3 Ryan Kohlers from Heber City that are 5 years apart, let alone like thousands of us.
Right.
We're freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
And so but a little specificity of like Ryan Kohler, founder of ApplicantPro, suddenly goes, oh, we're looking for that guy.
Yep.
And it starts to pull in. But yeah, you would hope that it would be pretty good. I mean, I know mine would.
Dude,
mine would probably be.
if we looked into your ChatGPT or your Claude, man, it knows you like probably better than you know yourself.
Based on everything you know about me, write up a powerful 3-sentence introduction for the podcast that I'm on right now.
Let's see what we got.
And
see, this is why I knew this episode was going to be fun.
Yeah, if you use it enough, then you're like, based off everything you know about me, blah, 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 blah. And so it's like, let's see, it's pretty similar. A recruiting rebel who's flipping the script on how companies attract and engage top talent. He believes hiring isn't an HR function, it's a marketing strategy. This has helped thousands of employers, blah, 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 blah. Right?
Yeah.
And so pretty similar.
Yep.
But again, like also I have hundreds and hundreds of hours on YouTube that it most likely is consumed.
For sure.
So it's a little harder if you don't have a bunch of content out there.
No doubt. Yeah. And the last episode that I did, I put a couple of our previous episodes into ChatGPT and put the transcript in like you teach, right. And it's finally starting to like in my little workbook that I have in ChatGPT under Killing Conversations, it's starting to finally understand exactly what I'm doing and what I'm talking about every episode. And so it's finally starting to kind of like pump out some useful things that I'm not having to like consistently like redo or retype out. And it's pretty sweet. But
yeah, and that really is, are you in ChatGPT?
Yeah.
That really is kind of the misunderstanding, or maybe not misunderstanding, but we get really... Yeah. So like we get really reliant on this technology, and the way that the technology world is saying like, hey, just use it enough and we'll start to remember you.
Right.
and it will build up this memory. And like, okay, that's fine and good, but that says, it's going to suck at first.
Right.
Which just think about if you're like
anything. Like, dude, if I went out and tried to play tennis right now, I would suck at playing tennis.
Yeah, but like that's you learning it and it learning you. But like, I think you're in a free version of ChatGPT.
I am. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Tight ass.
Yep. I know, right?
So
you know me. Yeah.
If you upgrade to paid, and this is like one of the big misunderstandings of ChatGPT is like they put so much emphasis on like 4.0 and 4.5 and 3.5 and all these different like whatever language models. But the real reason to upgrade is you get projects.
Right.
And so if you upgrade and you get projects and create a Kiln podcast project, then you can load memory to it. So now instead of waiting for it to remember me, I'm now saying, no. Like, here's the overview of my podcast. Here's all of our episodes. Here's like whatever. And when I start a conversation to prep, I want you to act as my podcast assistant. I want you to ask me for the name of the guest and their LinkedIn profile. I want you to review these people. I want you to blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of this like the AI companies are doing a disservice to their users by saying,
for free.
We got it, not just the free, but like, we got it all. You won't have to do shit. And in actuality, what they should be saying is, hey, this is like any piece of software. If you configure it well, it's going to be awesome on day one.
Right.
If you don't configure it, it's going to have to learn about you. And they should be using the learning, the memory, as a negative. It's going to take freaking forever for it to do this. You want value on day one, set it up the right way. But it's just not.
And it's not how, like, it's so new that it's not how, like, obviously you're doing so much in, like, teaching the space of AI, but, like, somebody like myself or somebody that's just, I Googled ChatGPT and I just plug stuff in, you'd have no idea, right? Because it's not what we're experts in, but I think it's gearing up to be something that everybody's going to have to be an expert in.
100%. It's job security for me because literally that's what I do all day long.
Yep.
Like what I do all day long is like, hey, let me come in here. Let me pull information from you. Let's build out these knowledge bases. Let's build its voice. Let's train it. It's kind of like if you hired a new front desk person and then hired me to come in and train them so that on day 2, you're like, holy crap, this brand new employee is now acting like they've been with us forever.
Right. Yeah.
But only you're making that leap in a day.
Yeah. Instead of months and months of runtime. Right.
And so it is that same, like, it's so funny that while ChatGPT is kind of like hiring an assistant, we're treating it like it's hiring an assistant. Like, well, I guess if I spend enough time with it, then it will get better. And it's like, it's a piece of technology.
Right.
We should be able to just get it better on day 1. And so literally like most of my day is me training ChatGPT for other people.
Right.
Me going, oh, okay, cool. Let me train it so it talks like you. Let me train it so it has your templates. Let me train it so it has your knowledge. Like here, you just jumped 6 months of training and in an hour.
And dollars too, right? Because training costs companies so much money. If you can do this in one day, like
100%,
it's a game changer.
100%.
And we'll eventually get into kind of what you're doing now. I would love for people to kind of know where you came from, though. And so I would love to know, prior to even ApplicantPro, what kind of got you on this entrepreneurial journey? What made you want to because ApplicantPro, if nobody knows, it's in the HR space. It's and I'll let Ryan talk a little bit more about it, but this guy's sent out billions and billions of emails to people. And so that's kind of going to be a huge part of claim to fame is this guy probably sends out more emails than you.
If you're listening to this, if you check your inbox for refer.io, you probably get email from me.
Yeah.
And if not you, then your wife, your kid. Like if you've applied for a job, there's like a 1 in 20 chance that you get email from me.
Right. Exactly.
It's just that ridiculous.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me a little bit about why you. What did you do prior to ApplicantPro?
Sure. So like way back, grew up on a dairy farm in Heber. My parents were sick growing up and it triggered this desire to have control over my ability to pay for stuff. And it's probably, at our core, it's funny. Like clearly you can explain it away as like, hey, my dad wouldn't buy me the shoes I wanted. And so I was going to figure out how to make money to buy those shoes. And that's an easy explanation that doesn't have any pain attached.
Sure.
But you dig down in the pain, it's like, oh shit, if these people die and leave me alone and I'm the baby, how am I going to solve for that?
Yeah.
And when you're young and in middle school or high school, you're like, there's only so much money I can make, like being a pizza delivery driver or some shit like that. And so that, literally, that was probably some of the first time I started trying to make money. Would have been like 10 years old, 12 years old. Really? I'm like, you better figure this shit out. You better figure out how you're going to make money. And you don't want to be, it's one of the challenges with careers. When we think about it, like as a kid, you basically believe you can be one of the careers of the people that are in your life.
Right. Yeah. Like if your dad's a teacher, you could be a teacher. If your mom's I don't know, food worker or whatever that is. YouTube has
helped at least that we can start seeing what it's like to do other people's jobs. But still our relation to, I believe I can do this because I've seen somebody do it and I believe that I could become them. Mm-hmm. But that means like when you're in, 6,000 person town in Heber City, Utah, and you're like, there's no tech entrepreneurs in this place.
Right.
So the richest person I knew was an uncle who was a lawyer. So I'm like, I guess I'll be a lawyer. Awesome. Mm-hmm. That's the track I'm going. And then I got to college and did an accounting job in high school and had an accounting class. I'm like, all right, I'm looking for my easy way through college.
Yeah.
Like,
and job security.
Nothing against you accountants out there, but your math is not that hard of math. Compared to calculus, accounting math is like business math. It's pretty easy. And so I was like, I can breeze through this stuff. This will get me out of college. My mom wants me to get a college degree because she's a teacher. I can check that box off.
Yeah.
Switched from the Master's of Accounting to an MBA because being in the Master's of Accounting program is rough. It's a lot of stuff. And then quit my job probably, like 3 weeks after I graduated.
You quit your accounting job?
Uh-huh. I had a parking lot sweeping business on the side that I bought this parking lot sweeping truck, but I just, dumb luck, whatever you want to call it. So the tech world is kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, right? Like you have to get a golden ticket to get inside.
Sure.
It's super stupid.
Difficult. Yeah.
We complain that there's not enough tech talent out there, and yet we won't hire you as the receptionist if you haven't been the receptionist for a tech company. And then we bitch and moan that there's no tech talent out there, and people who aren't in our space aren't that techie, and yet we put up these moats to not let people in. Mm-hmm. And so you just kind of assume this like your first job in tech, especially if you're not a programmer. Clearly, if you go to college and become a programmer, there's a path directly in. But if you are marketer, sales, customer support, like if you're going to be a product manager, which is a big one that there's no college degrees for the most part, like somebody gave you a golden ticket.
Right.
They like let you in. So somebody let me in here in St. George, this little like learning management company, which would be akin to like a Thinkific or something like that. Now LinkedIn Learning. Yeah. But this was early days. We're shipping VHS cassettes and DVDs and like very earliest Internet Explorer, like 5.0. But yet your internet sucks so bad that you can't get the video to load. So you're like logging into the browser, but you're referencing the video from the DVD drive. And so I just happened, like dumb luck, got a job there. My mom told me not to take it. My old boss told me not to take it. Like it is the perfect example of like, should you listen to your elders? Like you should act like you're listening. You should show respect. Yeah. You shouldn't. You probably shouldn't be disrespectful too much. But like the people who've gone before know where we came from and they know their own inherent biases of that. But then you look at this tech company and for a lot of people at that time would have been like, that seems risky. That's not as stable. And it's a smaller company that may not be as stable. And like you look, I was downgrading from, although it was like a multi-level marketing company selling a Fedra that got sued out of business. So that clearly wasn't stable.
Right.
But into the tech world where it's like, oh man, those tech companies, they're kind of crazy.
Especially then, right?
But it instantly opened up my mind to like, oh, there's a marketing person and a salesperson and like a product manager and all these jobs I didn't know existed that I was instantly like, okay, I just know one thing. I'm not going to be an accountant anymore.
Yeah.
And the job I want is the entrepreneur's job right there, that guy. So I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
And so, quit my job, started building websites. Me and a programmer left, started building websites and doing web marketing, all like self-taught.
Really?
Like, I mean, I didn't study any of that college.
How would you self-teach yourself then? Because you just said YouTube's such a huge thing right now where you can learn pretty much anything by just Googling a YouTube or just looking up a YouTube video, right? How would you self-teach yourself on developing a website when you were doing it.
way back.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the same way, even as now, like we have an overabundance of information now. That doesn't mean, so like if access to information made people successful, then we would all be successful.
Right.
So it's not just access to the information. So yes, it was out there. You could have read a book. You could have like got a DVD drive on how to build websites. You could have whatever. I mean, I literally worked at a company that produced that type of training.
Right.
But it's having just enough to get you started and then experimenting and iterating. And we tend to all of us were sold this, bless my mom's heart, 'cause she was a teacher, but she's gone now, so it doesn't matter. I can shit on it all I want. But we were sold by the educational system this like, get on the bus, sit in the seat, and the bus driver will take you where you need to go. And that there'll always be somebody there telling you, hey, here's what's required to pass this class. This is, take this test, do this homework, and if you do that, you'll get an A. And that's a pretty low threshold. In all honesty, like,
sure.
Memorize this shit, regurgitate on a test, and do a random one-day project and suddenly check it off. I know something. I would say is like utter bullshit, really doesn't help. What actually you need is under-index the learning of like, oh, I read this book. Like I probably started 10,000 books in my life. I don't care if I finish them.
Yeah.
I have no problem not finishing. I get to the point where I'm like, this was what I needed to learn from this. Now I'm going to go and connect it to what I do and apply it and test and tweak it and adjust it and use it and iterate and use it and iterate until I figure out. And so like for web marketing is a good example. Like, hey, here's how you build websites. Cool. This was early days of web marketing. So HubSpot was barely starting to put out content. And so you're reading and consuming content and then testing. So, I mean, I remember I'd be sitting there going, hey, I want to target the keyword troubled teen homes in St. George. And so I'd go Google it and I'd see the list of all the websites there. And then I'd go, and again, because the accounting side of me meant I was very analytical.
Sure.
So I'm using this numbers approach of like download all the pages that are there and count how many times that phrase shows up in the page. Okay, cool. It looks like 8. It looks like 3% of the words on the page seems to be the magical number. I'm going to take and test that. I'll build a page. I'll see how it stacks. When it ranks, I'll be like, cool, we're winning. Like, oh, I put 20 times. Shit. Like I just got booted. But very much like trial and error. And we got into ApplicantPro because somebody asked me like, hey, it seems like, and again, I think I'd learned Dreamweaver, which was like software to build websites with, like this much.
Yeah.
Like not a programmer. Like,
but the guy that you pulled over was?
The guy I pulled over was a programmer. And then we hired this like mom out of Dixie back then, Utah Tech now. And so like she was working for me and we're building all these like websites. Like we were building a restaurant directory before Yelp was around and doctor directories and anything that we could rank with. And somebody asked us to build a set of hiring software. I'm like, it looks like what you're describing is like a website with a login. Now, the software people are out there would be like, no, like that is not what they were asking for. They were asking for a software platform, but clearly me unafraid to say, yeah, hell yeah, we could build that. Let's go ahead and do it. And so our first version was literally like a website with a login and everybody thought it was a joke. Everybody in the software world thought it was a joke. But everybody in the HR lady world was like, wow, this is super easy to use. It's kind of like a website that I don't need trained on.
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference. Software normally is something that's like, hey, we built this really robust, complex thing. And before you use it, you need to do all this training.
Right.
Whereas a website like, say, Amazon, if you had to be trained to buy off Amazon, nobody would buy and Amazon would fail.
Right. It's so simple that anybody can do it, right?
And so what everybody thought was clunky, like the left-hand bar had this really long menu with every area you could go, and you could scan down it and go, oh, I want to go here, I want to go there, meant that our support costs were very low.
Right.
But yeah, I think I was probably in at like 40 grand. I pulled money out of my paycheck. I go back to accounting jobs when I needed money.
Yeah.
So I was like a controller at a country club in Park City. Best job ever. If you're going to get an accounting job, like the controller at a country club that's open 4 months out of the year, but you work year round.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah,
be
you
tough.
can't beat that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, wintertime in Park City, Utah, where you're like, so today my job is to feed the employees who are here, but the golf course is closed.
Sure, yeah. What else are you...
So I guess I'll build some software while I'm sitting around.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I took some of my pay and paid for a part-time programmer mom and a part-time support mom. And I think I quit at probably 200, 300 employees.
You quit your...
I quit my day job. Quit my day job. We were probably...
Wow, so you said 200, 300 employees when you ended up...
sorry. 200, 300 clients.
Oh, okay,
So 200, 300 clients.
Like,
so
dude.
200, 300 clients, and I was probably like maybe like 5 part-time employees when I quit. And I was like, all right, I got to focus on this full-time.
Yeah.
Like I switched from full-time accountant job to like a couple little side gigs where I was just doing some accounting for people and straight like, all right, I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was probably 40 grand in.
Wow. And I've heard you say this before, and I've actually heard you say this to multiple people. It's you sell it and then you build it, and that's exactly what you just were talking about. Is somebody came to you with an issue, you sold them on what you were going to do, and then you went and built that thing for them.
100%.
And that's kind of what got ApplicantPro started. Was somebody came to you with an idea, they needed a problem solved, you built it whatever easiest way, maybe not easy, but like the simplest way that you possibly could, and just sold it from there.
Yeah, and you could even step up above that. Like normally people don't come to you and say, I want you to build this software. Like now, for those of us who started in the web marketing and website building, like that took a long time to build up.
Yeah.
But once we got known as being like, oh yeah, you're an internet guy, so you could probably solve this problem. That then becomes people ask you to build stuff. But if you're if you're just like, hey, I want to start a business and I'm thinking maybe I want to build software, I'm thinking maybe I want to build, whatever the case may be, where you want to start is with your target audience.
Right.
And so I had resellers, and so those were my target audience to be like, all right, what is your problem? What is your pain? Like, yeah, you want this software, but why? Like, what is the problem set there? But normally I would go get in front of them. So like if I wanted to start a business that's targeting, say, golf courses, I would try to go get proximity to golf courses.
Sure.
And that isn't just, I might go golfing, but I'm not going golfing to golf. I'm going golfing to hang out around them. Or I would go to like a golf trade show and I'd go hang out with those people. And I would go find groups online where they're members of. And I would want to spend time trying to figure out like, what's your problem? What's your pain? What keeps you guys up at night? Because if I know what keeps you up at night, then I can go put together a solution. It might be something as simple as, oh, cool, I'm going to come up with a solution and teach you how to implement it. AI being a good example. I was teaching AI way before I was getting paid to do AI. So I'd kind of identified, look, hey, I want to be an AI. This is a new hot thing, and I'm investing all this time learning it. And I think I was probably like maybe 2 months, 3 months into screwing around with it when I kind of threw it out there and got a speaking gig. And so I kind of I produced some videos, threw them out there, got a speaking gig. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to go teach the tool or the result I want to get. And then I might start consulting before I actually build a product, because it just, we tend to think it happens the other way because we saw the movie The Social Network.
Right.
And yes, it does happen that way if you're Google, if you're Facebook, some of those big companies. But for the most of us, the safest path is I know the customer, I've engaged with the customer, I understand what their pain is, I've pitched a solution. My tool is probably just going to make that solution easier, faster, better.
Right.
But the solution I sold you on via education. I was like, Nick, the right approach to, like, take where we started this podcast with, where I'm like, Nick, the right approach to AI is you need to train it. I'm going to sell you on why you need to train it. I'll actually teach you what to do to train it. And then I'll end up actually making money when you go, hey, that sounds awesome, but could you do it for me? Because I don't want to waste 3 months figuring this out. Will you do it today?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And so that tends to be my approach with pretty much anything.
It's so smart. And like prior to meeting you, like I've never thought about it that way, or even seen companies, because you just see the big conglomerates like Facebook and Google that you watch a movie about them and you understand, oh, they built this really cool thing and then it just caught on, where like your approach, and it seems to be like, obviously it's working and it seems to be going really well for a lot of different people, is just like you said, make sure that you're in the right group of people, understand them first, understand what you can help them with, and then find a solution for those exact people. And it kind of just spreads your ability so much further than I just am good at this one thing, or I just sell this one product, where you can then, you know what you have. And when we talk about AI, you can build something in a day for these people. But that thing that you can build in a day is going to solve someone's problem for 6, 7, 8 months down the line, which is huge because time is money, and nobody wants to have to go and teach themselves this. And so that's like that full circle moment for started as a project for you, and now you're selling this project.
Yeah, and I think it's if you're from outside of the tech world, especially, the tech world is this like amazing thing where people become gajillionaires,
right?
Seemingly overnight, right? And so you see a movie about Facebook, and you're like, dude, look at that. Zuckerberg was just sitting in his apartment on campus, decides to build this thing. Oh, cool. It's super great, blah, blah, blah. Raises money, gets funded, moves to Silicon Valley, all that kind of stuff. But what you didn't see was the movie on Friendster and MySpace that failed.
Right.
And even worse, you didn't see the movie on probably like 5,000 to 10,000 social media platforms that got nowhere.
Yeah.
Because that little Zuckerberg story, that's like a 1 in 1,000 shot.
Probably more. Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so, but you don't see all those other movies. And so you look at it and go, well, apparently that's the model
right
for how to build a successful company. And so you look at Sergey Brin and the guys at Google, and you're like, okay, they start, so 100%, you want to follow their path, then go to Stanford and get in the PhD program and drop out. Like, 100%.
If you want to follow that
But I
line,
only know
sure.
a few people who could actually get into Stanford in the PhD program. So clearly we aren't them. Right? So for the rest of us in the world, if you follow their path, you're shooting at like 1 in 100, 1 in 10,000 chance. Like that's, I think the fail rate, the chances of getting to $1 million in revenue in a B2B company is like 10% is the quoted one. I think that's probably bogus. It's probably less than 5% get to $1 million in revenue.
Wow.
Not $1 million in profit.
Right.
$1 million in revenue, which means you might at $1 million in revenue. At $1 million in revenue, we were barely profitable.
Right. Yeah, well, because
I wasn't a millionaire when we had $1 million in revenue. I was still like sucking wind.
Right.
Like, and so, so that makes it, you start thinking about that and you're like, oh, like maybe this isn't as exciting as it should be. And so therefore, my path to decrease the risk of failure might mean not listening to the social network, not watching that show and doing something that seems a little backwards, like, hey, I should know the customer and I should know that they care about this pain. And I should test not just selling it beforehand because it would give me money, but selling it beforehand says you care enough about the problem you're willing to pay.
Right.
Because there's a lot of businesses out there that are solving pains that are not a priority. And so we call it, there's a book on it called The Mom Test. And so you're like, hey, if I ask you questions like you're my mom, and you're like, oh, that would be super cute. I really like that idea. You don't ask your mom to pay for it. And even if you did, she's like, here's my last $1,000. And so the mom test is this concept that like you asked a mom question, you got back a mom answer, and then you ran and built a business on it. No, you got to ask hard questions like, okay, cool. So I want $5,000 for this. Will you pay for it?
And if it's no, then it's probably not.
Well, why not? Well, I mean, I don't have $5,000. Oh, crap. So my target audience has no money. Well, that sucks.
Right.
Or they do have $5,000, but they wouldn't spend it on that. Well, what would you spend it on? Well, I'd spend it on A, B, and C. Well, I guess I better move over to where you would spend money.
Right. If that's your target market, right.
And so,
and it's so true. There's so many companies out there that just have a solution for something that isn't a priority for somebody, and you're exactly right. And that's kind of where, so ApplicantPro itself then took off into something pretty massive, really. And would you kind of, and I know a little bit of your story through ApplicantPro, but peak of Applicant Pro, how many employees did you have? How many clients did you have? What were those numbers kind of looking like?
Sure. So let's see. And there's like, what's interesting is if you look, so Applicant Pro, I was probably there for 17 years, beginning to end. I think it's been around since, I started in 05, 06. So it's almost 20 years, coming up on 20 years. Actually, it's probably 20 years ago in 3 months when I actually built the first system.
Yeah.
And so, like at certain trigger points, you can kind of track its progress. But when I stepped down 2.5 years ago, we were 280 employees.
Wow.
Just under 10,000 clients, like probably 32, 35 million in revenue, growing at like 30%.
Yeah.
And in the tech world, that's how we measure shit. Like literally, like those are your 4 measurements. You're like, how many employees and how many clients and what's your revenue and what's your growth rate? And those are the measurements. And it was like 12 years in a row on the Inc. 5000 list. Yeah. So like that's, gives you that kind of measurement path. And then that gives you also numbers that you can look at. Like the value of a tech company is based off of its revenue and its growth rate. Is it growing? Not profit, which is one of the weird things about the tech world. We do care about profit. We care about more now, but most of the time we're going to take that profit and plow it back in to drive the growth number up.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at tech, and I've been learning about it more and more recently. Your valuation isn't technically based off of what you're bringing in, your revenue. It's based on the idea and the amount of users and all the consumers that you have currently on the product, not about how much money you're actually bringing in.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like valuation, it depends. So you have the valuation. A lot of the valuations you hear, tech companies get a valuation when they raise money. So that's not the same as selling the company.
Right.
Like a valuation to sell the company would be like somebody decided they wanted to buy you out. That's different than somebody came along and gave you $50 million to get you to grow. They're assuming that $50 million in an investment is going into the business. Right. Versus $50 million to buy you out doesn't give the business any money.
Correct.
And so, it's probably also the way that you should think about, building a business yourself. You're like, the value of it is where we're at today and the vision for where we believe this platform takes us to 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And so number of clients matters in that vision. If you're going, hey, we could sell them t-shirts and make another $100,000, or hey, we could sell them an add-on product or a secondary product. And like, there's way more metrics in there, like churn rate and how many people are canceling, all that kind of garbage.
Right.
But yeah.
It's pretty exciting. And I don't want to focus too much on Applicant Pro because I think that a lot of people that are going to be listening are going to want to hear about AI and want to hear about what you're currently building. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're currently pivoting into a new venture. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
And it's all AI based, right? Will you tell just everyone about this new venture that you've been doing it for a while, but it's going to be kind of like your main gig.
So I left Applicant Pro, and Applicant Pro was hiring software. So like if you're applying for a job at Neaters or Costa Vida or SUU or whatever, you're applying through my platform.
Yeah.
And so it's really focused on like the HR person or the managers deciding who to hire. And for every one hire, there might be 50 or 100 people who don't get the job. So when I left Applicant Pro, I took with me we'll call it like the redheaded stepchild I'd built there called Refer. And I started like a decade ago. And it was basically taking all the people that didn't get hired and remarketing to them. So we were sending emails, and that's where the whole email thing comes in of okay, people applying for jobs, that's cool, and one of them gets hired. But the other 99, we're going to send emails to every week to say, oh, you were interested in Neaters, here is more Neaters jobs.
Yeah.
Or here's other jobs similar to that job, so you can go and find it. And I think right now we did 1.2 billion emails last year.
It's crazy.
Doesn't make me any freaking money. Yeah. It was way too ahead of its time. Email marketing for HR. I tend to build stuff that's like a little past the curve.
Yeah.
And then it looks like I was brilliant when we get there, but in the short term, it looks crazy. But because of that, we were creating a ton of content. Like we're trying to not just send jobs, but we're trying to educate job seekers on how to do their job. And so when I stepped down from Applicant Pro, literally it was like the same month ChatGPT came out.
Crazy.
Like same exact month. And I'd seen like technically OpenAI had been out for years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was being ran through like Jarvis or Jasper, third parties. It wasn't very good. And really, like, I hadn't spent enough time to understand what it was doing and why,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't need to. And that's probably where a lot of businesses are right now. They're like, hey, look, we're busy doing what we do today.
Right.
So we're just sticking with this. And I could afford to do that, 7 years ago, to be like, yeah, nobody's using this. It's not good enough yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, ChatGPT came out. I picked up my son one day from school, and he was in, I think, middle school or maybe a freshman in high school, and was like, hey, Dad, have you seen ChatGPT? We were playing around with it in class today. You should check it out. And I just stepped down and had like 2-year non-compete, non-solicit, kind of like, what am I going to do with my time?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, poured myself into it probably 40, 50 hours a week.
Wow.
I mean, I would like middle of the night, I'd be sitting in bed like, let's see what we can do with
Just
this
having
thing.
a full-blown conversation with the AI.
Having a full-blown conversation like, what does World War III look like compared to World War II? Let's map this process out, switch out the characters.
Yeah.
Everything from like that to like, hey, why don't you explain to these people I'm at a table with what Quidditch is and how to play Quidditch, but let's do it in Spanish and have Snoop Dogg do it. Like, and so
Right.
every iteration of that and my real core question was like, if I was a blank,
Mm-hmm.
how will I use this at work to do blank? And that one makes me very different than people just screwing around with AI.
For sure.
Right? Because I'm literally iterating like, okay, if I was a marketer and I worked for a B2B SaaS company like ApplicantPro, how would I use this at work to do blog posts and emails and social media posts and videos? And like, I would sit there and just cycle that all week long. Okay, cool. If I was a teacher, if I was a librarian, if I was a job seeker, if I was a 17-year-old high school student studying literature and my teacher had just given me this assignment, how would I use it to do that?
Yeah.
And so I just would sit and cycle those. And so, yeah, I mean, it's the interesting paradox.
Right.
You listen to the AI companies are like, Nick, this is so easy to use.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's
it is to a certain extent,
it's
right?
easy to it is easy to get to quantity.
Right. Like I could just type in a question right now, whatever was on my mind, and it would just spit out a bunch of stuff, right? That stuff's not tailored to me.
Quality.
Like, yeah, exactly.
To get to quality, like I'm not 5,000 hours in because I'm stupid.
Right. No.
Clearly,
Yeah.
I'm still evolving what I'm doing and iterating off of it. But to get to great content, to get to like, I could build a voice bot really quick for you. It would just be boring.
Right.
But to get to a
there's not
really
enough.
compelling voice bot, to get to it, getting the right information, putting in the right system, again, that's technical.
Mm-hmm.
But getting it to make you want to get that information,
Right.
that's a little bit different. Like
For sure.
That takes some psychology behind it of like, how does Nick think about AI? And is he offended by this voice bot talking to him? And like, how should I play that?
Right.
Like, should I be trying to fake him out, make him think it's really me? Should I make a joke about it and like introduce it as my new employee that's AI? Should I just tell him it's AI?
Yeah.
Should I, play on his human emotions of like, hey, I'm new at this, Nick. I might screw it up. Don't get me fired, Kay. Like there's a million different variations,
Yeah.
but none of it is the, type in here and create the bot.
Right. Yeah. None of it is. And that's like the deep, dark depths that you've gone into this thing, which is like hours and hours of time put into a certain platform where it is now. And you showed me a video just the other day of not actually you talking, walking through this building, spitting out content about Refer or spitting out content about your seminars coming up. And it's like,
Right.
that's those hundreds and hundreds of hours being put into this system, right? It's not just me asking it a question of what's World War III going to look like,
Yeah, and I think that's probably, you could say this with like any technology. Let's say it's web marketing, right? If you want to become a web marketer, like it's the barrier to entry for most jobs like this is pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, you could go watch a course on YouTube and be like, I'm a web marketer.
Yeah, right.
Everybody and their dog can do it. And that's great that we have all these jobs, whether it's marketing or sales or even bookkeeping to a certain extent. A lot of these jobs are open to anybody without the requirement of a college degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives us this ability to like get into these different jobs. And AI opens us up to all kinds of new stuff. But if you do the bare minimum, then you just need to assume that you're a commodity because everybody could do it. So the downside, you could do the same thing and talk about real estate. Since it's so easy to get a real estate license, like everybody you know has a real estate license. There's like 7 real estate agents for one home in St. George.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, there's crazy amount of competition. So ease it solves for I am it,
right?
But it doesn't solve for I'm going to make money doing it.
Or be good at it in general. Right?
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if we're training ourselves to think that taking the course is what we need to now be great, then you're just lying to yourself. The difference between people who are good at something and people who are great is that hours and hours and hours of iteration. Of no, I'm great at this. And with AI, it's like, no, I use it for everything, and I use it for weird things and serious things, and like creating an AI bot that will tell some kids a bedtime story is the same fundamental principles to building a tool to write marketing content, and the creativity kind of interchanges. It's just a lot of times like using it to do something stupid has less pressure of failure.
Yeah. Give me an example of something that you've done that's just stupid.
So like so let's see, we're in Costa Rica. So we're in Costa Rica, and Sarah rented a car. My wife rented a car from some random person that she found somewhere, right? Not from a real car company, from a random person she found. And so we hop in the car with this lady who's taking us to go pick up the car. No big deal. Third world country, Pura Vida. Apparently everybody loves us there. So I'm sitting in the back with her 2 daughters, like a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I'm right in the middle.
Daughter?
Yeah, right in the middle. Sarah's up front talking about business AI with them, and I'm sitting there in the back, and I'm like chatting it up because this is normally what I would do. Small kids and animals, I'm going to be the ones chatting them up.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there back in the back, and there's like a bunch of books in the front in the seat there, and so I grabbed one of the books, and I'm like, you guys like this book? And it was some like adventure story book, and there's an entire series sitting there, and they're like, oh yeah, that's our favorite book, blah, blah, blah. And so I grabbed ChatGPT. I'm like, hey, ChatGPT, research this book. Yeah. And so it inhaled this book, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So based off of this, I want to write a story. And I got my friend Ruby and my friend whoever, that sucks, I forgot her name. I want them to be in this story with these 2 characters that are in it. And I want to change. The story's going to be in Costa Rica, and they're going to have like a pet monkey that can talk, and he's a howler monkey because there's monkeys all over down there.
Right.
And let's create a brand new story out of this. And then I hit it and have it read it to them.
Dude, they probably love that.
And so they're like, what the heck? And especially when if you get AI to talk,
right?
It feels different than reading.
For sure.
It's doing a human thing. And there's certain things about it talking that will trick your mind. And so having it mention you by name, if I just said, tell them a story, that's different than they're in the story.
Right. Yeah.
And so it starts
and it's their favorite story too. So like they already know these 2 characters that they've been reading about, and now they're involved.
100%.
And that probably took you 10 minutes on your 10-minute ride.
Dude, it took me yeah, maybe more like 3 minutes while we're driving along. And I could have and deep fake Snoop Dogg's voice and have him narrate it to them or something like that. And now I probably could have put it into CapCut, made a baby talking head podcast about it and have the baby talk to them, or snapped a picture of them, turned them into a baby head, turn it into a podcast, and probably could have turned that around in 10 minutes.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
But so, yeah, you do those types of things. But
it's just practice, right?
It's just practice.
It's just practice. You're just consistently getting better and better and better at it. And it's just quicker and quicker and quicker.
Yeah.
And those stupid little fun projects are what creates genuine content that you're going to promote to a company.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people think of, technology as being this technical thing, right? And so one of the big mistakes companies make right now is they go, okay, we need to figure out how to use AI, and AI is a techie thing. So let's get our IT person, our CTO or whoever, and have them be in charge of putting this in place. And you're like, okay, good. I get it.
Yeah.
That IT person does understand technology, but the actual implementation of AI is much more art than science.
Yeah.
And IT guys, they're not artists. They're definitely scientists.
Yes.
Right. And us marketing, psychology, product manager people, we're much more artists. This is an art thing. Yeah. This is not just a tech thing. And so that's where you see it kind of fall apart, where you're like, oh, 100%. He could have built that same story, but he wouldn't have thought through the human psychology side of it to go, okay, but they need to want to listen to it. Okay, it needs a hook, and it needs to say their name, and it needs to include them, and it should make a joke about them, and it should say something about what they're wearing. And like there's these little triggers in human psychology that a technician, whether they're an IT person, an accountant, an economist, a lawyer, like 1 and 0 thinkers, very structured people,
For sure.
don't think about the art side of it.
Yeah.
And if people actually understood that, they'd start to see that AI compared to, say, website building is more art because the tech is being taken care of for us.
Right.
So I'd actually rather hire somebody who has a psychology degree than somebody that has an IT degree to help me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I can work around the IT thing, but I can't work around, somebody's lack of empathy.
Sure.
Somebody's lack of understanding of the user.
And we all love developers. Like, you're not going to ask a developer to create a story for you based on our relationship or your
They
relationship.
might, but it's
with
going to be Dungeons and Dragons for kids.
Yeah, and like it's probably not something that you would sell to a legit company where it's like, hey, I need to know X, Y, and Z about this CEO so that I can implement this thing in my AI bot to then create a personal connection with this person. And because, I mean, at the end of the day, like when you're talking about art, you're talking about these folks are being artists. It's honestly, it's just the human connection to it. And that's what people are so scared about AI about, is like, this is dissolving the human connection, which a lot of people can't think that way because of the baseline knowledge of what AI is, right? And it's...
Yeah, and I think even that's like one of the misconceptions that we're playing into, right? So like, and by the way, IT guys who listen to this, I love you to death.
They're the best.
If we're building AI tools for IT people, you got it.
Yeah.
Right. But on the AI side of things, so the measurement of how good AI is called the Turing test. And Alan Turing was one of like the founding fathers of AI way back when we were like vacuum tubes and shit. But he set up this test. We'll know that AI is great when a human could talk to it and they don't know they're talking to AI.
Right.
And it set up this human versus AI as the test for how effective it is. But that's actually causing a bunch of problems because it sets this as a competition between a human and AI.
Yeah.
And therefore, I start to build tools as a SaaS company or as a software company aimed at doing what a human could do so that you displace the human. But that's not how AI has to work. That's just like, unfortunately, the way it's been set up to do. And we as humans that approach it, look at it and our default is be like, well, have it try to do what I'm great at. So the AI companies have set this as a human v AI competition.
Right.
And we humans have approached it as, I need to prove it's not as good as me, human v AI. And so we throw at it what we're great at.
Right.
So if you're a salesperson, it's like, well, I bet we could get to do the sales call without the human. Cool. I bet you could try to do that, and maybe in the future it will. And I bet that a salesperson could show that it doesn't work. Awesome. But while you guys are over here fighting this stupid battle, in here in the middle is what actually is proven. Human intelligence, AI together, making it collaborative.
Right. Build
a tool for the shit they don't want to do. But over here, we're building tools for the stuff that salespeople do want to do, the stuff they're good at.
And things that can, quote unquote, replace them.
Yeah.
Right?
And so
that's
like
not the idea.
Yeah, if you're an AI tool building for accountants, you start building stuff that does accounting work. And the accountants are over here going, it's not that easy. Let me show you that it doesn't work. But in the middle is like, hey, accountant, you suck at talking to your customers, right?
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, I hate writing these emails. Like I send them the spreadsheet and they don't look at it. And you're like, because they're not spreadsheet people. So you need to be able to create a narrative story about their financial statements. And the accountant goes, well, I'm not good at that. Awesome.
Great.
That's where we want to use AI.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we're not replacing, we're kind of interpreting and restating it in somebody else's context. And so now it becomes really valuable where the accountant's like, here's a financial statement and here's what it means.
Yep.
But could you write up a story about this to explain to a salesperson who's not good with numbers what's going on financially? And it will do an amazing job. And now we've paired together and it works great. And so I tend to be in that. I don't tend to take on clients. So I have rules. Like I have my own value set on how I view AI. It's not to replace humans. It's to amplify humans. If I'm building chatbots and that kind of stuff, it's like a voice bot. It's not to replace a conversation that's happening. It's to extend it in places where you couldn't afford to do it. So like, I don't want to replace a teacher, but I'd love for every kid to have a mentor they could call.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That would be super valuable.
Yeah.
I don't see teachers offering to do one-on-one mentorship 24/7 to 40 students.
Right. Exactly.
So that seems like that's an area I can go play in where I'm not harming the humans. I'm extending the value proposition. I'm giving the knowledge from the teacher's class to the bot to then chat with. Mm-hmm. Hey, that's an amplifier, not a subtractor. And so for me, I only work with companies that are growing. Therefore, if I make their employees, 40% more effective, the revenue is going to go up. They'll keep their team.
Yep.
But if a company's flat, their revenue's not growing.
Because then they're looking to replace, right?
Then they're looking to be like, yes, we'd love it if we could do what we're doing now with half the people.
Right.
And along with that being kind of negative for their people, it's also negative for the people who stay.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
You run that play once, your culture is screwed.
Right.
Like your employees, while yes, you just made them more effective, and yes, you're making more money, and you might even give them a raise, but you went from abundance to scarcity overnight. Mm-hmm. And the people who stay are going to be just as shell-shocked and have just as much PTSD as those who left.
For sure.
And so while you might look at and be like, yeah, but they're 40% more efficient, and then 6 months later, you're like, but they're like 20% more efficient. Like, what's going on?
What's next? Like, what's the next cut that I can make? Yeah.
Yeah, and you might look at it and be like, it seems like our employees are actively fighting this. And you're like, they might be, but maybe just subconsciously, you created scarcity and a threat in their system.
Right.
And so now they're not adopting the technology at its best use case because you set the deal that you were choosing it and profits over them. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I'm going to work with companies that are in growth mode because I know that they're going to keep their team. Right. And that means I can inspire their team to engage the tech, or I'm going to find solutions to problems that we can't solve. One-on-one mentorship for kids in underprivileged kids.
Yep.
Nobody can solve that. Great. I'm going to go solve that. I'm not going to solve the get rid of the teacher and make them unemployed.
Yeah.
Because that's just like, why? Why would I aim my talents and my skills at harming a problem here when there's a ton of problems that aren't being solved?
Totally. And that's pretty like that's like a pretty inspiring way to think about it, really, because it's the idea is that, and we kind of just talked about it. The idea is people are scared that AI is here, humans are here, we can't meet in the middle. You are solving a problem and creating that basically middle ground for these people that it's really cool, man. And I love talking to you about it, and I love hearing about it because there's something new every day too, which keeps it so exciting, right? And it's like, oh, I just found this new thing that I've been testing out for the last couple of days. Check this out. And it's so fun to kind of watch that happen. And speaking of watching it happen, I want to kind of segue into, and I said at the beginning of this podcast, you're probably one of our Kiln ambassadors, right? You are, I know for a fact, the most traveled to each Kiln site that we have here at Kiln St. George. What part of that, being able to go up to somebody in the kitchen, being like, look at what I'm building, how cool do you think this is? And getting to pick brains off of, or pick ideas on and thoughts off of other people that are just in this space that honestly probably have no clue what goes into exactly what you're doing, but have certain opinions and have certain thoughts on something that you might not have thought of already.
Yeah, so there's a couple parts to it. There's the part that everybody should take away and the part that I do, right? So for me, I'm generally looking for a laboratory. I just am. Yeah. Like, that is how I create. I generally create tools for people. Therefore, I want to be around the people I'd create for.
Yeah.
Right. And so since I'm creating tools for people to use at work, then I want to be in a space where it's not just my employees, there's lots of people. It's why that's why I was so excited. I'm like, Nick, when's this place opening?
Yeah.
I went to Boulder. I caught the vision. I'm like, I know what this is going to look like. Now get this place open already.
Right.
And so for me, I want to be around my user. And that could be like, even before Kiln, if I was starting a new business, I'd go to a trade show. Mm-hmm. I would show up. I would get a booth even if I had nothing to sell. so that I could interact with the user, because I want to go through this iterative process of like, what is your problem? What is your pain? Oh, cool. Can I restate it to the next person? And they go, oh shit, are you like listening into my house? How did you know that that's what and I could state it enough times to get to the point where I'm like, oh man, I get these people.
Yeah.
I know what their problem is. I know what their current process is. Then I can start floating ideas and, hey, what if we did this? Could you imagine if we did that? Oh, let me mock something up. Imagine if it looked like this.
Right.
And part of that, de-risks the business.
Sure.
And part of it though is just the creative juices. Like I am a nightmare to be around at trade shows because like my energy already is amped and it amps up. Like if I'm in an environment where my users are at and I can test and validate stuff, it just rapidly gets me to a solution.
For sure.
But if you're just a normal person working in AI and you're not a freak like me, working in anything, like you just think about it like, hey, I'm an accountant. Cool. If accounting is changing slow, then I can go to a conference once a year and I can learn about new stuff. And it's not that big of a deal because the change is slow. Mm-hmm. But if the change was speeding up, say marketing, well, the more that I'm around, not me, not my team, people who have a different idea, a different use case, who use it differently, the faster my learning is going to grow.
For sure.
Because there is a difference between watching a YouTube video and chatting with a YouTuber. Those are two different things, right? Hey, show me. Like, yeah, I get it. 60 to 90 seconds is such a great clip time. But that's not for learning stuff.
Right.
So you want to learn something? Like, I need to see a longer example and I need to ask questions.
Yeah. And what better way to ask than the person sitting right in front of you?
100%. And so if we take AI and we go, cool, AI is growing this way, then I need more time around people using it. More time to be like, so I probably do, my own mastermind groups are currently like twice a week. Yeah. Then I attend one that's like once a quarter I go somewhere offsite to it. I have one twice a month that I hang out on. Like I'm probably still, even at my level, like 5 hours a week around people using it. Yeah. And it doesn't matter that they're better than me or worse. I don't care. Has little to do with this person. And sometimes you get somebody that's like, oh, you taught me a new way to think about it. That's awesome. Thank you. And that's helpful when you have, a super smart person. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a different perspective, not right or wrong, just a different perspective. Oh, that's interesting that you did it that way. Right. Oh, I should try it that way. Yeah. Let me go see what it does in it's even like where we started at, where you put something in ChatGPT and I put it in mine. I was looking for how it was different. Sure. Right. And I might have like looked at your prompt and looked at my prompt and gone, oh, okay, interesting. I see how he used his prompt that way. I use my prompt this way. I'm going to go try it. Today, I'm going to go buzz 50 different variations on it or something like that. Right. But that is hard to get, but you can get it at Kiln. Right. Like it's really not that hard. Just like walk out to snack time and say AI.
And then, and then people start asking questions, right?
Or like get a little cheat sheet so you go, oh, I just heard make.com or I just heard N8N or there's just these certain like prompt. Right. Like there's probably 20 keywords that if you listen, you'll hear it and be like, oh, that's a conversation about AI usage. I'm going to just hang out over there and be like, so what do you guys talk about? Yeah. What are you building?
And the cool part is like everybody's cool with that. And that's unique in a space where competition is so high. It's part of the reason why Kiln sticks out amongst other co-working brands, because that is the point. It's the community focus where you can hop into a conversation and be like, I just heard you were talking about this. We're having snacks in the kitchen, and tell me what you know. And people are cool with sharing that, and you can definitely see that in all the spaces as well. And because I've being able to open this building and being able to go and explore other sites, that's what you'll find at every single one.
Yeah, and I think that like competition isn't high yet for AI. The competition among the AI companies might be, but all the rest of us normal people, like we're at the tip of the iceberg. And if you think that it's scarce, it's not. Like we're playing around with like less than 10% of AI's potential right now. Like we are still in the early days of like what it could become and what it will become. And like probably 80% of every AI company you've heard of will be gone in the next 3 years. And consolidation will happen and new AI companies. And they'll be like, oh, we were wrong. It really should have been this way. And so this is just the cycle of new technology. But if you think about from a co-working space, like very few people are actually competing with each other here.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Right?
You could be doing the same thing, but you have totally different clientele. You have totally different people that you're talking to. You might be a SaaS company or a B2B company, and you're just doing the same
even
thing,
among us tech
right?
companies, if you think there's probably like at least like, and there's probably way more than 20 or 30 in the building, but 20 or 30 just that I happen to run into randomly, and none of us compete with each other.
Right.
Because it's that broad. And so therefore, like, open up your mouth, like share first, and you'll see that it will set the tone.
Right.
Hey, look at what I'm working on right now. Have you thought of doing that? I'll show you my work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it just creates that community aspect of what we're trying to build here, and you can see it when you come to certain events, right? Like we were really lucky to have you speak at one of our events, and it was packed. It was a packed house, and I still get questions about that seminar that you did, where it's like, where is that guy in the building? Like which office is his? Because I have a question about this, and it's you're so upfront about being willing to share that I do think that it sets an example for the space, which I really appreciate, because it gives other people that walls down approach of like, I can go and share something and get an idea and get something back in return as well.
Yeah. And I just think that's, so there's a great book on network. I don't know if it's technically networking, but it's called Love is a Killer App. One of the first business books I actually read. And I normally look for people like that, people who act that way, or people who've read the book are going to be my tribe every single time. And it's basically like, you need to do the unexpected and unrequired. So like when we started ApplicantPro, we were one of the first, if not the first, hiring software platform doing free trials. Use it first. If you like it, buy it. If you don't.
Right.
That is very much, it was unexpected and unrequired. And, ApplicantPro was 280 employees and 80% mom, right?
Right.
Like very, very different. I was hiring people from outside the tech world. I was giving away, I probably had maybe 400 people go through that company, and maybe 40 of them were programmers.
Wow.
So, like 360 golden tickets got given out.
Yeah.
And those people are now at Ancestry and at Zapier and all these different brands where they've moved on to. But I paid for house cleaning. Unexpected, unrequired, right? And so that brought in, we would go to trade shows, and there's a bunch of, middle-aged HR ladies there, and I'm giving away purses. I'm not giving away like golf clubs.
Right.
Unexpected, unrequired. And so you have to, the basis though is this like lead with value and know that it will come back. You'll come back threefold, 3x, 5x, but it won't come back from that person, and it shouldn't be the expectation. So you have to like disconnect this, I'm going to give to you and you're going to give me back. And instead I go, I'm going to give to you and I'm going to get back.
Yeah.
But from somewhere else.
Right.
And if you can make that disconnect, and it's really hard, especially if you get burned.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get burned.
Right.
Somebody's going to steal your shit and they're going to go and implement it somewhere else. And like, it's just life. They're probably going to screw it up. They're probably going to mess it up. Or maybe they're going to do awesome. And then I guess you should have executed better. Right?
Right.
But that requirement of like, no, I'm just going to teach. I'm going to teach. I'm going to teach. I'm going to share. I'm going to tell. I'm going to go first. I'm going to share first.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my stuff out there. And if you return by going, no, I'm not going to give away my secrets. Like, cool.
Right on.
Like, who cares?
Exactly.
That's your choice. Don't do it. It'll probably harm you in the long run. Like the universe doesn't love that.
Right. Exactly.
So you're going to get your ass handed to you by the universe, but go ahead. I don't need to be the one.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome, man. And I think that's such a good way to wrap. And I really appreciate you. I appreciate you being in this space and being such like a collaborator and such like a inspiration for a lot of people in here. And I'm super excited for people to actually listen to this episode and be able to kind of see a little bit of background into how you started, because everyone sees where you're at now, but it's such a cool journey. And from the very beginning of, I needed to figure out, because my parents were sick, that's nobody will know that, and so
100%.
I'm really excited to share this one, and thank you everybody for listening in, and thanks a lot, Ryan, for being on.
Yep. You can find me. I think we got our new AI for Teams logo up, so now there won't be confusion of what is Refer. Just look for something that says AI.
Yep, and you'll find Ryan here.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks.